Yishmael, Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Allah. I'd like to talk about what are called sacred talismans, magical talismans. What is a talisman? Talisman. Talisman is a symbol. It could be a letter, sculpture, any kind of symbolic representation that has been charged with an essence, charged with a principle, an eternal idea. The great teacher and author Robert Bovell, the author of a book called Talisman, he talks about the temples of ancient Egypt. He says the ordinary tourist, he comes to these temples and okay, it's power, it's pretty, it's beautiful, it does evoke something in him, it does stir something in him because of the talismanic energy which was imbued by those priests and those sculptors and architects. They imbued ideas into those forms. And so when the average person comes to these temples, something of that does get to us. Not at the deepest level. So we say, wow, that's really beautiful. And it makes an impression, but we go on with our day. We go on with our lives, and not a great impression, perhaps not so much, perhaps for some people more. But the key to these temples is you have to interact. You have to allow yourself to interact and experience all the parts, the hieroglyphs, the sculptures, the play of the light and the dark, and the space of the building itself. All of these things were coded. And to truly receive the codes, you have to let yourself interact, to dance, to experience, live with all of those parts that have been coded with a specific essence. Now the essence coded by the priest might be a star, so a hieroglyph could represent a star, or the king, or the creator. And some of us were priests, Egyptian priests in previous lifetimes. And so when we go to these places and we allow ourselves to interact, then something very, very deep can happen. And so the key here is the temple, or even the temple of the Alef Bet, or any sacred symbology that you want to talk about. They are like living machines, living essences. Those hieroglyphs, those statues, contain the living principle of the star they represent, or the king, or the creator, or Horus, and so on, Osiris. They contain the living principle. Now we can connect with that if dance with it. And it takes very often practice. If you want to dance with the eternal ideas that have been imbued according to the keys of Enoch, the Hebrew letters are the sacred flame geometries which the Hebrew letters represent are eternal ideas of God. Okay? But if you want to experience that, then you have to let yourself live those letters, to dance with them. You have to merge with those letters or with the hieroglyphs and statues of the temple. And I love what Boval said in this amazing film of John Anthony West called Magical Egypt. He says, if you're a priest, if you're an initiate, and you go into one of these temples, he says, you discharge your initiation, and the temple discharges in response, in an interaction, until you gain a full understanding. So in other words, it's a dance, both directions, between you and the temple. But you have to discharge your intent, to merge your initiations, of your ancient soul initiations. You have to discharge them. And then the temple of the Alef Bet will discharge more and more. We are the activators of the Alef Bet or of the temples. And as we discharge our dance, our merging, then it can discharge more and more, and it builds until we could get a full understanding of what we're looking at just by observing it. Until these symbols are created to actually change our brain state, to actually change our energetic biorhythmic patterns just by looking at them. But to have that full experience, then we have to go with the intent of dancing, of living it, of merging with it. So we are as Barbara Marciniak says in her book Earth, our wonderful book, we are the keys of the living library. And actually, the whole earth, as she says, as the Pleiadians say, is a living library. But we are the library card. We are the key that can access the library. And it's our intent, our focus, that we bring to the earth, because also everything in the earth is also a sacred symbol. So this is the power of a talisman. The power of a talisman, it has to do with the power of imbuing. Okay? Boval talks about a fraternity ring, which was, given to us maybe many years ago when we were in school by our fellow fraternity members. And whenever we look at that ring, we look beyond the mind sees the beyond the ring. It feels, it re-experiences all the memories and the feelings, good or bad, connected with those days when we were young in our fraternity, and the friends we had and the things we did. The mind sees and feels beyond, or if a new wife will dry a flower from her wedding and put it in a book and keep it, and years later She sees the dried flower that she kept in the book, and she starts to cry. That is the power of imbuing. That is the power of talisman. And the most powerful talismans, according to this Keys of Enoch, is connected with the Hebrew letters. And because he says, well, I'd like to read something that I touched on before, and I'd like to read it again in connection to this idea of sacred talisman. So, again, in key 315 of the Keys of Enoch, Enoch says, that this Hebrew language is not a language of words, sounds, and pronunciations, but the thoughts of God emanating as flame projections. I mean, who could take that statement in? Who could grasp it? The thoughts of God emanating as flame projections? Well, it makes you think that maybe we could heal ourselves with these flame projections, these thoughts of God, that we could heal others, that we can heal our environment with these flame projections. It's mind-boggling, that statement. And I continue reading. These thought projections of flame, carry a unique sound that is in resonance with the throne, and these sound and thought projections are used in the highest worlds of light, not only as a source of communication, but of creation. And elsewhere in this chapter, it says that these sound and thought projections are actually used to create worlds. A mind-boggling statement. And certainly, if that's the case, then we can heal ourselves. And we can heal our world with these sound and thought projections. If they can create worlds, if they're the thoughts of God. I continue. These flame projections are used to evolve creation because they can seed ideas into consciousness, which can be maintained for extremely long periods of time. In other words, these light geometries have eternal endurance. Earlier, I spoke about the central mantras of the universe. According to the book, according to the Jewish tradition, also Jesus mentions these, the hero Israel. According to the Torah, the two sacred mantras that heal are vibrations that have that according to this book, the Shema has the vibration, which is the basis of all other vibrations. And according to this book, and according to this chapter 315, God has promised at the end of this time period, the Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tsevaot, the Holy, 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 is the Lord of hosts, will become the key to the transformation of man. Do we take that at face value? Or is it just more New Age hyperbole, New Age exaggeration? I don't know. But I think I think I've received an understanding